The day the Vraxians descended from the sky was like any other, sunny and calm, until it wasn't. As their ships blotted out the sun over New York City, chaos erupted below. People scrambled for cover, looking up in disbelief at the colossal metallic forms hovering ominously. Captain Michael Torres stood in the midst of the pandemonium, his eyes fixed on the sky. "This can't be good," he muttered to himself. Beside him, his longtime friend and co-pilot, Lieutenant James "Jimmy" Hawkins, clutched his shoulder. "Mike, what do you think they want?" Jimmy asked, his voice edged with anxiety. Michael shook his head. "Nothing good, Jimmy. Let's find out what the brass says." They hurried to the emergency military assembly point in Manhattan, where commanders and soldiers were gathering, all wearing the same look of grim determination. The base was a flurry of activity, with officers barking orders and soldiers rushing to arm themselves. General Davis, a stern-faced man with a reputation for his unyielding demeanor, addressed the gathered troops. "We have been approached by an alien race calling themselves the Vraxians. They demand our immediate surrender and threaten to annihilate us if we resist." A murmur ran through the crowd. Michael stepped forward. "Sir, we can't just bow down. We have to fight." General Davis eyed him. "Captain Torres, prepare your squadron. You're going up to get a closer look. We need intel." Michael nodded and turned to Jimmy. "Gear up. We're going to see what these aliens are made of." As they suited up, Jimmy tried to lighten the mood. "You ever think you'd be flying up to meet aliens, Mike?" "Can't say I did. Just wish it was under better circumstances," Michael replied, checking his gear. Soon they were airborne, jetting towards the massive ship that loomed above the city. The closer they got, the more imposing it became. Its surface was sleek, yet distinctly alien, covered in panels and structures unlike anything Michael had ever seen. "Mike, look at that." Jimmy pointed towards a section that seemed to be opening. "I think that's a docking bay. They might be inviting us in." "Or it's a trap," Michael said grimly. "But we need to know what we're dealing with. Let's go in." The two fighter jets approached the opening cautiously, landing inside the alien ship. As they disembarked, a group of Vraxian soldiers, tall, with gray skin and piercing yellow eyes, greeted them. One stepped forward, a translator device around its neck. "You are commanded to follow us to the leader," the Vraxian soldier spoke, its voice mechanical through the translator. Michael and Jimmy exchanged a glance, following into the heart of the ship. The interior was as alien as its occupants, with walls that pulsed with light and strange, humming sounds filling the air. They were brought to a large chamber where a taller, more decorated Vraxian awaited them. This must be the leader, Michael thought. "I am Commander Zorak," the Vraxian leader began, his voice booming around the chamber. "Your planet is now under the rule of the Vraxian Empire. Resistance will be met with destruction. You will surrender or face consequences." Michael stepped forward, his stance defiant. "Earth won't surrender without a fight. What do you want from us?" Zorak sneered. "Your resources, your labor, your obedience. Surrender now, and we may spare your species." "We need to discuss this with our leaders," Michael replied, maintaining his composure despite the rising tension. "You have 24 hours, Zorak declared. "Do not defy us." Back in their jets, Michael and Jimmy raced back to Earth. "We have to prepare, Jimmy. It's going to be a long fight." "Yeah, but we'll give them one hell of a fight, won't we, Mike?" Jimmy said, a fierce determination in his eyes. Michael nodded, his resolve hardening. "Yes, we'll show them exactly what humans are made of." The world reeled from the ultimatum delivered by the Vraxians. As news spread, fear and uncertainty gripped humanity. However, beneath the surface, a spirit of defiance began to take shape. Michael Torres and Jimmy Hawkins were at the heart of this burgeoning resistance. In a hidden underground bunker in Washington, D.C., key military leaders and scientists gathered to devise a plan. General Davis presided over the meeting, his face etched with the weight of the world. "We have 24 hours to decide our response," Davis began. "Captain Torres, you and Lieutenant Hawkins made contact. What's your assessment?" Michael stood, his gaze steady. "The Vraxians are technologically superior, but they underestimate us. We have the advantage of knowing our terrain and the element of surprise. We need to strike quickly and decisively." A murmur of agreement spread through the room. Dr. Elizabeth Kwan, a leading scientist, stepped forward. "We may have a weapon that can help. In the Arctic, we discovered remnants of an ancient human civilization. Their technology is advanced and could turn the tide in our favor. General Davis raised an eyebrow. What kind of technology? Dr. Kwan pulled up a holographic display showing schematics of strange, powerful weaponry and spacecraft. These are prototypes we've been working on. With a little more time, we can retrofit them for use against the Vraxians. Michael's eyes lit up. How soon can we get this operational? With everyone working round the clock, a few days, Dr. Kwan replied. We don't have a few days, Jimmy interjected. We need something now. Dr. Kwan hesitated. We do have one ship ready, but it's untested. Michael stepped forward. We'll take it. Jimmy and I can run a reconnaissance mission. If it works, we can gather intel and strike at their weak points. General Davis nodded. Do it. Time is running out. Hours later, in the icy expanse of the Arctic, Michael and Jimmy stood before a sleek, alien-looking ship partially buried in the ice. Engineers and soldiers worked feverishly around it, prepping for launch. Hard to believe this thing was made by humans, Jimmy said, marveling at the ship's design. Michael placed a hand on the hull. We were more advanced than we knew. Let's make it count. As they climbed aboard, the control panel lit up, responding to their presence. The ship hummed to life, and within minutes they were airborne, slicing through the Arctic winds and heading into space. Everything looks good, Michael said, scanning the instruments. Let's see what this baby can do. They set a course for the Vraxian mothership, maintaining a low profile to avoid detection. As they approached, the vastness of the alien vessel became apparent. It was a floating fortress, bristling with weaponry and defenses. Okay, Jimmy, we get in, gather intel, and get out. No heroics, Michael instructed. Roger that, Mike, Jimmy replied, adjusting his controls. Using the advanced cloaking technology of their new ship, they slipped past the outer defenses and docked in a secluded hangar bay. As they disembarked, they moved quickly and silently, their mission clear. Inside, the ship was a labyrinth of corridors and alien machinery. They made their way to the control center, where they hoped to access the ship's mainframe. Keep an eye out, Michael whispered as he hacked into the system. We need those schematics. Minutes ticked by, feeling like hours, but finally, the download was complete. Got it, Michael said, unplugging the device. Let's move. Suddenly, an alarm blared, and Vraxian soldiers flooded the corridors. We've been spotted, Jimmy shouted, drawing his weapon. They fought their way back to the hangar, exchanging fire with the relentless Vraxians. We can't let them get this intel, Michael said, covering Jimmy as they boarded the ship. As they launched, Vraxian fighters pursued them. Michael pushed the ship to its limits, weaving through the enemy fire. Hang on, Jimmy. We're not done yet. With a final burst of speed, they broke through the Vraxian blockade and headed for Earth. Mission accomplished, Michael said, a determined smile on his face. Now we fight back. Back in the bunker, General Davis and Dr. Kwan reviewed the stolen schematics. This changes everything, Davis said. We have a fighting chance. Michael and Jimmy stood together, ready for the battles to come. We've lit the spark, Michael said. Now we turn it into a fire. To victory, Jimmy replied, clasping Michael's shoulder. And so the spark of rebellion was ignited, setting humanity on a path to defy their oppressors and reclaim their world. Back on Earth, the atmosphere among the human resistance had shifted from shock and fear to a gritty determination. With the successful retrieval of alien technology and crucial intelligence by Michael Torres and Jimmy Hawkins, the strategic landscape had fundamentally changed. Humanity wasn't just on the defensive anymore. They were actively preparing to hit back. In the makeshift command center, a rugged warehouse in the outskirts of Chicago, Michael briefed the gathered resistance leaders and military tacticians. Maps and digital projections lit the dim space, casting stark shadows on determined faces. We've got their tech, and now we know their weak points, Michael started, his voice firm. Our best chance is to use guerrilla tactics, hit and run. We attack their supply lines, communication nodes, anything that can cripple their operations, then we disappear before they can retaliate. General Davis nodded in agreement, his eyes scanning the room. Captain Torres is right. We need to be swift and elusive. This isn't just a battle. It's a war of attrition. Among the gathered was Dr. Elizabeth Kwan, who had been instrumental in adapting the alien technology for human use. The tech we've acquired isn't just for offense. I've developed some defensive tools as well, shields, cloaking devices, and more. We can make our movements nearly invisible to their sensors. Jimmy, leaning against a steel beam, chimed in, So, where do we strike first? Michael approached a large digital map displaying Vraxian positions across the globe. Here, he pointed at a location in South America. A major supply depot. It's heavily guarded, but it's a critical node for their operations in the hemisphere. We take that out, and we disrupt their activities across multiple sectors. The room buzzed with strategic discussions as plans were drawn. Teams were organized, each with specific roles and targets. Michael led one of the assault teams, with Jimmy as his second-in-command. Late that night, under the cloak of darkness, Michael's team approached the Vraxian supply depot. The air was thick with tension. Every team member knew the stakes. This was humanity's first proactive strike against a superior alien force. Michael signaled to proceed, and the team moved silently through the dense jungle surrounding the depot. Dr. Kwan's cloaking devices masked their approach, making them nothing more than shadows passing through the night. As they neared the perimeter, Jimmy set up a series of small, high-explosive charges around the depot. "Fire in the hole," he whispered into the comms, and moments later the night erupted in light and sound as the explosives detonated. Alarms blared and Vraxian troops scrambled. The human team capitalized on the confusion, launching a fierce attack. Michael led from the front, his adapted alien weapon discharging with lethal precision. "Push forward!" he shouted over the din. The battle was intense, with both sides suffering casualties, but the element of surprise worked in humanity's favor. Within an hour, the depot was in flames, its stores of alien resources destroyed. "Pull back," Michael ordered, as Vraxian reinforcements began to pour in. The team retreated into the jungle, disappearing into the night as quickly as they had arrived. Their mission was a success, but it was just the beginning. Back at the command center, the team was greeted as heroes. General Davis reviewed the mission's footage, noting the effectiveness of their tactics. "Excellent work. This is the first of many. We'll keep them off balance, hit them where it hurts, and keep hitting them until we reclaim our planet." Michael, tired but invigorated by their victory, met Jimmy's gaze. "One down, countless more to go." "Yeah," Jimmy grinned back. "Let them come. We'll be ready." As the news of their victory spread, it ignited a fierce hope across the remaining free human populations. Small skirmishes began to flare up globally, each one inspired by the success of Michael's team. Humanity was no longer fighting just for survival, but for victory. The guerrilla war for Earth had begun. In the weeks following their successful attack on the Vraxian supply depot, Michael Torres and the human resistance grew bolder. Their guerrilla tactics were proving effective, and now Michael was ready to push even further. The resistance was going orbital. The makeshift headquarters buzzed with activity as Michael, Jimmy, and General Davis pored over satellite imagery and blueprints of the Earth's orbit littered with Vraxian warships and communication satellites. "Taking the fight to space is the next logical step," Michael asserted, pointing to a cluster of Vraxian ships stationed above key Earth locations. "If we can disrupt their orbital infrastructure, we can severely cripple their surveillance and command capabilities." General Davis nodded thoughtfully. "It's risky, but the payoff could be significant. We've captured enough of their ships to form a small but capable fleet. It's time to show the Vraxians that Earth's sky is not theirs to control." Jimmy, ever the enthusiast for a daring plan, clapped his hands together. "Let's give them a proper welcome to our neighborhood." The next few days were spent in preparation. Dr. Elizabeth Kwan and her team worked tirelessly to retrofit the captured Vraxian ships with human technology, ensuring that the pilots could operate them without needing to interface directly with the alien systems. Meanwhile, Michael trained with the other pilots, running simulations and strategizing their attacks. Each pilot was handpicked for their skills and daring, making them the perfect candidates for what could very well be a suicide mission. Finally, the day of the launch arrived. The Resistance's fleet, a motley assortment of alien crafts bearing the scars of battle and hasty modifications, stood ready. Michael addressed the group, his voice firm and inspiring. "Today, we take our fight to the stars. Remember, we're not just fighting for control or survival anymore. We're fighting for the freedom of our planet and every soul on it. Let's make sure they hear us loud and clear." Cheers filled the hangar, the air electric with determination and nerves. Pilots suited up and took their positions in their respective ships. Michael climbed into the lead ship, with Jimmy as his co-pilot. As the fleet ascended, breaking through the atmosphere, the beauty of space unfolded before them, a stark contrast to the deadly mission they were embarking on. Ahead, the dark silhouettes of Vraxian ships loomed, unsuspecting of the oncoming storm. All right, team, split into your squads. Target the communication satellites first. Cut off their eyes and ears, Michael commanded through the fleet's comm system. The battle in orbit was fierce and chaotic. Human pilots maneuvered through enemy fire, launching precise strikes against the Vraxian satellites. Explosions lit up the void, each one a small victory in the silent expanse. Michael and Jimmy targeted a key Vraxian warship, weaving through volleys of plasma fire. Jimmy locked onto their target. Firing in 3, 2, 1. The missile streaked away, striking the warship and igniting a massive explosion that tore through its hull. Cheers erupted over the comm as the ship began to drift, incapacitated. Great shot, Jimmy. Squad leaders report, Michael said. One by one, the squads confirmed their objectives were met. The Vraxian orbital network was in disarray, their ships scrambling to regroup without the guidance of their satellites. All right, everyone, pull back to Rendezvous Point Echo. We've done what we came to do, Michael ordered, steering his ship away from the fray. As the fleet regrouped and headed back to Earth, the magnitude of their success began to sink in. They had not only survived an orbital battle, but had also delivered a significant blow to the Vraxian control of Earth. Back on the ground, they were greeted as heroes. General Davis met them as they disembarked. You've all done an incredible job today. This is a big win for us. Michael looked around at his team, pride swelling in his chest. This is just the beginning. We've shown them we can fight on any front. Now let's get ready for the next round. The resistance had indeed taken a giant leap, but the war was far from over. As they celebrated their orbital victory, they knew the path ahead would be filled with more challenges. Yet, this victory had proven that the spirit of humanity was indomitable, ready to face whatever came next. With Earth's orbit now a contested battlefield and the Vraxians reeling from unexpected human aggression, Michael Torres and the Resistance set their sights on a broader stage, the galaxy itself. The victories in space had provided not just morale but also access to a fleet of Vraxian ships, ripe for human repurposing. In the war room, beneath the bustling streets of what was once a quiet suburb now transformed into a fortress of human resilience, Michael outlined the next phase of their campaign. The room was filled with military leaders, tactical advisors, and Dr. Elizabeth Kwan, whose innovations had turned the tide of the war. We've hit them hard at home, Michael began, pointing to a star map dotted with Vraxian outposts. Now we expand our operations. We start by raiding isolated Vraxian outposts across different star systems. Each successful raid will not only weaken their grip but also supply us with more resources and intelligence. Jimmy, now a seasoned lieutenant with scars and stories in equal measure, added, each of these outposts operates in a semi-autonomous manner. By disrupting their local operations, we can create a ripple effect that will destabilize their imperial structure. General Davis nodded, his eyes tracing the map. Your targets are well chosen. These are strategic weak points. Success will require precise hits and quick extractions. Dr. Kwan stepped forward, remote in hand, flipping through slides of advanced tech. For these missions, I've upgraded our ships with adaptive camouflage and enhanced firepower. We've also developed a new line of EMP grenades designed to disable Vraxian tech without permanent damage, useful for capturing rather than destroying. The preparation for the galactic raids took weeks. Ships were refitted, and squads were drilled in zero-gravity combat and rapid boarding tactics. Michael, leading the initiative, emphasized speed and stealth. The first raid targeted a mining colony on a remote asteroid in the belt of Orion. As they approached, the blackness of space was punctuated by the stark gray of the asteroid, dotted with the lights of the Vraxian mining operation. All right, team, Michael's voice crackled over the comm. In and out in 20. Let's move. The human ships, cloaked and silent, descended on the asteroid. Teams deployed from the crafts with military precision, using the low gravity to their advantage as they glided towards the mining facility. Inside, the resistance fighters quickly overcame the Vraxian workers and their security droids. Jimmy led one of the squads, moving through the corridors with practiced ease. They planted charges and gathered valuable ore samples and data pads filled with off-world communication logs. As alarms began to blare, Michael ordered the retreat. Pull out, let's move. His team reboarded their ships, the asteroid shrinking behind them as they made the jump back to hyperspace. Over the next several months, similar raids occurred. With each strike, the Resistance gathered more resources and grew bolder. Stories of human guerrilla fighters taking the fight to the stars spread through both human and alien channels, inspiring oppressed populations and destabilizing Vraxian control. After a particularly daring raid on a Vraxian supply hub in the Sigma sector, Michael and his team regrouped aboard their command ship, weary but victorious. They had managed to seize a cache of advanced weapons and several high-ranking Vraxian officers as prisoners. Jimmy looked over at Michael, a grin spreading across his face. "You ever think we'd make it this far, Mike?" Michael, reviewing the latest intel, allowed himself a rare smile. "Hope is a powerful thing, Jimmy, but we need to keep moving forward. Each victory here means a better chance for Earth." As they plotted their next moves, the Resistance was no longer just a band of rebels fighting a desperate defense. They were a formidable force, waging a strategic offensive across star systems, sowing the seeds of a revolution that might just lead to the downfall of the Vraxian Empire. The series of successful raids across the galaxy had thrown the Vraxian Empire into disarray. Michael Torres and his team had struck at the heart of the Empire's operations, revealing vulnerabilities that until then had been expertly concealed. The once indomitable Vraxian hold over their territories was now showing cracks, and the humans intended to shatter it completely. In the command center aboard their flagship, newly dubbed Freedom's Herald, Michael stood before a holographic map of the galaxy, markers indicating Vraxian positions flickering under the assault of human ingenuity and resolve. Beside him, Jimmy Hawkins, now more a brother in arms than a subordinate, observed their next major target. The Vraxian capital planet, Zorax Prime. If we can destabilize their control there, it could very well trigger a domino effect, Jimmy suggested, pointing at the glowing orb on the map. Michael nodded, his eyes narrowed in thought. "It's heavily fortified, probably the most secure place in the galaxy right now. But if we can make a dent there, yes, it could indeed push the Empire over the edge." General Davis, joining the discussion via a secure comm link from Earth, gave his approval. "It's a bold move, but boldness has served us well so far. We'll need a detailed plan. This isn't just another raid, it's an all-out assault on their center of power." Over the next weeks, the Resistance crafted their most ambitious plan yet. Michael and Jimmy worked tirelessly with their tactical teams, planning every detail of the assault on Zorax Prime. Dr. Kwan was instrumental, devising new technologies to breach the planet's formidable defenses. The plan was multifaceted. A feint attack by a decoy fleet would draw away some of the Vraxian forces, while the main strike force, led by Michael, would infiltrate the planet under the cover of a specially engineered cloaking device. Ground teams would then sabotage key infrastructure to cause chaos and confusion. When the day of the assault arrived, tension was high among the human forces. Pilots, soldiers, and engineers, aware of the stakes, went about their duties with a grim focus. "Remember, we only get one shot at this," Michael addressed his crew as they prepared to jump into hyperspace towards Zorax Prime. "Today, we fight not just for Earth, but for every species oppressed by the Vraxian regime. Let's make sure it's a fight they'll never forget." The decoy fleet launched its feint, drawing a large Vraxian armada out of position. Meanwhile, Freedom's Herald and its accompanying strike ships slipped through the defenses. The cloaking device, a masterpiece of human engineering, worked flawlessly, hiding them from sensors as they descended into the planet's atmosphere. On Zorax Prime, the human teams deployed, moving quickly and silently. Explosions rocked the Vraxian military districts as sabotage teams hit power stations, arms depots, and communication hubs. The chaos was immediate and devastating. In the capital city, Michael led a team towards the governmental complex where the planet's leaders coordinated their empire-wide responses. The Resistance fighters breached the complex, overcoming the elite Vraxian guards with a combination of surprise, superior tactics, and sheer determination. Inside the main control room, Michael faced Commander Zorak, the alien leader who had once so confidently declared Earth's subjugation. The battle was intense, but the humans, fueled by years of oppression and the burning need for freedom, were unstoppable. With the governmental complex secured and Zorak captured, the symbol of Vraxian control was effectively shattered. News of the attack spread like wildfire across the galaxy, igniting rebellions on countless oppressed planets. As they regrouped, Michael and his team watched from Zorax Prime as uprisings sparked in distant systems. The Vraxian Empire was crumbling, their illusion of invincibility shattered by human courage and cunning. "We did it, Mike! We actually did it!" Jimmy said, clapping Michael on the back. Michael looked out at the horizon, where the first light of a new dawn was breaking. "We've won the battle, Jimmy. Now let's go win the war." The fall of Zorax Prime was indeed the turning point. The Vraxian grip on the galaxy loosened, and the flames of rebellion, stoked by human resolve, spread uncontrolled, heralding the beginning of the end for the Empire. The rebellion that began with the fall of Zorax Prime had ignited hope and defiance across the galaxy, Every victory, every freed planet fueled the growing resistance. Now the scattered Vraxian forces were desperate, retreating to their few remaining strongholds. Michael Torres, the architect of many of these victories, prepared for what could be the final assault in this galactic upheaval. Aboard the command ship Freedom's Herald, now draped in battle scars and emblems of victories, Michael convened with his closest advisors and military leaders, including General Davis and Dr. Elizabeth Kwan. The air was thick with anticipation and the weight of impending conflict. Intelligence suggests the remaining Vraxian leadership has consolidated their forces at Fort Draconis, a massive star fortress near the galactic core, General Davis briefed, his voice echoing slightly in the packed briefing room. It's their last major military installation. If it falls, their capacity to wage war crumbles. Michael surveyed the room, his gaze lingering on the faces of those who had been with him since the first defiant days on Earth. We've come a long way from fighting for survival in the shadows of our own cities. Today, we end this. Jimmy Hawkins, now a seasoned commander with a fierce reputation, added, Fort Draconis isn't just a fortress, it's a symbol. We take that, and we take their spirit. Dr. Kwan chimed in, I've upgraded our fleet with the latest anti-Vraxian tech. They won't see us coming until it's too late. Stealth and speed will be our allies. The battle plan was complex, involving multiple fleets and coordinated strikes designed to penetrate Fort Draconis' formidable defenses. Michael's fleet would lead the direct assault, aiming to breach the fortress shields, while auxiliary squads would engage Vraxian forces, preventing them from reinforcing the fort. As the fleet approached Fort Draconis, the enormity of the fortress loomed before them, bristling with armaments and shield generators. The space around it teemed with Vraxian defenders, aware of the decisive battle that awaited. Engage cloaking devices and advance, Michael commanded. The fleet, silent and invisible, slipped through the Vraxian defenses. As they neared the fortress, Michael counted down. Decloak on my mark. 3, 2, 1, now. In an instant, the space around Fort Draconis erupted in chaos. Human ships materialized from the void, unleashing a torrent of fire and energy upon the fortress shields. Explosions lit up the dark space as the Vraxian defenders scrambled to respond. Michael piloted his ship towards the primary shield generator, dodging debris and return fire. Jimmy, take your squad and hit the eastern platform. I'll cover you. Jimmy acknowledged with a terse nod, leading his squadron in a daring dive. Together, they pummeled the platform, their coordinated fire finally shattering the generator, exposing the fortress to their weapons. Shields down. All units, move in. Michael's voice was triumphant but steady, aware that the hardest part was yet to come. The interior of Fort Draconis was a labyrinth of corridors and defense mechanisms. Michael and his ground teams breached the fortress under heavy fire, pushing towards the command center. Every hallway won was a victory, every secured sector a step closer to the end. In the fortress's heart, the final confrontation unfolded. Michael led his team against the elite Vraxian Guard, their final stand as fierce as it was futile. The battle raged, a brutal exchange of fire and wills. Finally, the command center doors blew open, and Michael confronted the last of the Vraxian military leaders. Words were unnecessary, as both sides knew what was at stake. The ensuing fight was intense and brief, with the humans overwhelming the last defenders through sheer determination and superior tactics. As the battle died down, Michael stood amidst the silence of the now secured command center, the weight of years lifting off his shoulders. Outside, the stars witnessed the fall of Fort Draconis and, with it, the fall of the Vraxian Empire. General, it's done, Michael reported over the comm, his voice a mix of exhaustion and elation. General Davis's voice crackled back, filled with emotion. Congratulations, Captain. You and your team have done it. The galaxy is free. As celebrations erupted across human-controlled space, Michael and his team watched from the fortress, a galaxy's gratitude shining back at them in the starlight. The final assault was not just a battle won, but a future secured. With the fall of Fort Draconis and the disintegration of the Vraxian Empire's military might, the galaxy was left in a profound state of transformation. Across planets and star systems, celebrations erupted among the liberated populations, marking the end of a dark era. Amidst this jubilation, the task of rebuilding and forging a new path forward was monumental. Michael Torres, at the forefront of this new chapter, was pivotal in shaping the future. In the Grand Assembly Hall on the newly named Liberty Station, formerly Fort Draconis, leaders from various planets and species gathered for the first Galactic Unity Summit. The vast chamber buzzed with a multitude of languages and the hum of translation devices. Michael, standing at the podium, was ready to address the assembly. As we stand here today, we are not defined by our past struggles but by our potential for the future. Michael began, his voice resonant and clear. The fall of the Vraxian Empire has given us an unprecedented opportunity to build a society based on justice, cooperation, and mutual respect. The crowd listened intently, many nodding in agreement, moved by the vision of a unified galaxy. General Davis, retired from military service, now served as an advisor for Earth's new diplomatic corps. He watched from the sidelines, proud of the role humanity had played in this galactic rebirth. Jimmy Hawkins, who had taken up a role in coordinating defense strategies for the new coalition, stood beside Michael, providing silent support. Their friendship, forged in the fires of battle, had become a symbol of the enduring human spirit. Dr. Elizabeth Kwan, now leading a scientific cooperative, shared innovations in technology and sustainability, helping to heal worlds scarred by war and exploitation. Her presence at the summit was a testament to humanity's commitment to not just leadership, but partnership. During the summit, Michael introduced a framework for a new galactic constitution, designed with input from all attending members. The constitution emphasized freedom, equality, and the preservation of cultural heritages, while also establishing a defense pact against any future threats. We have learned through great hardship that unity is our greatest strength, Michael declared, his gaze sweeping across the room. Let this constitution be our guide as we move forward together. As the summit progressed, debates and discussions filled the halls, with Michael often at the center, mediating and guiding the conversations. The resolutions passed were historic, creating a coalition government with representatives from each member species, all sharing equal power and responsibility. The closing ceremony of the summit was a grand affair. Flags of the coalition members, including Earth's, were raised in a symbolic gesture of unity. Michael, alongside leaders from various worlds, signed the newly ratified Galactic Constitution. After the summit, as the delegates departed, Michael took a moment to reflect on the journey that had led to this point. From a desperate resistance fighter to a leader on a galactic scale, his life had changed unimaginably. Jimmy joined him, clapping him on the back. Hard to believe, isn't it? From fighting in the streets of New York to signing treaties in space. Michael smiled, his eyes on the horizon. It's just the beginning, Jimmy. We've got a galaxy to rebuild. As they looked out at the stars, the weight of leadership was palpable, but so was the hope for a peaceful future. Humanity had not only survived, it had thrived and led the way to a new era. This new dawn was not just a victory for one species, but a beacon for the entire galaxy, promising a future filled with opportunity and peace.